Hey, it's Mother Funny time with Andie and Angie.
2 cousins, 8 kids, 1 grandkid, 2 states.
And a whole lot of fun. Woo! Back, Mother Funny tribe. It's 2 cousins together again to talk more about being moms. It's Angie and Andie, and this is Mother Funny. And we are your top podcast. If you thought we were true crime, we're not, but we could put that in our tagline because that's like the top podcasts are all true crime. So we'll just like somehow sneak true crime in here. It could be crime against cookies, like cookies were stolen. It could be something like that. But anyway, we don't want to waste your time because we know it's precious.
I know.
And we want to tell you what we're talking
Crime
about.
against time. That's not what we're talking about.
Crime against time. Okay, that's it. We can put it in our tagline. We're a true crime podcast called Mother Funny. And also a sports podcast if there's a guy out there. Anyway, today, Angie, what are we talking about?
Today, we're talking about planning. Planning. And as all the moms know, when you think about a mom, you think about a mom who loves you unconditionally. She's your biggest fan. She snuggles and hugs you. She loves you. She encourages you. But let's be real. Moms plan. Moms plan when it literally from before they give birth. They start planning.
From the positive pregnancy test.
Seriously. And really, when you think about being a mom, a huge part of it is planning, and we know that it's just March. I mean, if you live in Texas, everything's been dormant, and so things are now like the grass is turning green, and there's trees, and they have some flowers on them, and it's so beautiful, and you're like, wow, spring is almost here. But guess what? Us moms, we're also planning for the school year next year. We're not doing like back to school shopping, but when you're a mom, you have to start preparing yourself and your kids and really the whole family and the schedule. You're already thinking about the next school year.
The drivers. You're even thinking about food like lunches. You're thinking about everything for the next school year. So that's what we're talking about.
It's true. And part of that is it prepares kind of the mom's heart, I think, in a way, just to begin that thought process. Like when you have a cute little baby and then you're going to send them to preschool and you're touring the preschools. But at the exact same time, you're also planning spring break. Or maybe you just got back from spring break and now you're unpacking. And so you kind of live in this 2-world zone of preparing and planning for next year while also preparing and planning vacations. Or like for us, we have a preschooler and I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to do swimming lessons. So I'm also having to like prepare and plan swimming lessons for the summer. So there's always like this world of planning that people aren't really talking about. And it's not that we want to overplan our children's lives. Like we've had those podcasts and we've had the back to school podcast. This is more about like what moms deal with, what moms go through as they're preparing for that next school year while also trying to remain present right now because our kids are still in school. They're currently in a grade or they're currently in preschool. So there's a lot that's happening and moms almost have to shift from like one section to the next section, one emotion to the next emotion, or you're driving your kids to extracurricular activities, or then you're trying to get them to go to sleep. And then you're also thinking about preschool or kindergarten or, elementary school. And it's a lot that moms deal with emotionally that nobody talks about. So Andie and I decided to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it. We are going to be the only ones talking about it. You're welcome. And it's true crime. It's a crime that no one's talked about it before.
Nice.
Here we are. And I think especially if you have a child that's on the cusp of moving on to the next stage in their schooling, like it's huge with the end of the year stuff is all like wrapping up that season, wrapping up like if you're, the child's getting ready to move to kindergarten in the fall, then there's like ending stuff. There's usually little graduations. There's all these steps and then prepping the child for the next season. And if they're in elementary school and they're going to move on to junior high, well, then it's the end of the year, all the ceremonies, all the things. And then, but at the same time, you're, like you said, preparing for that next season. So there's a lot to plan, a lot to prep. your heart is trying to live in two worlds at the same time. I think especially like when you're sad that they're growing up, I think the more like the further you get along, the more you're like, oh, that's it. And it breaks your heart. But at the same time, you're super excited for them. I know it's just a bittersweet time when kids are ending one season and moving on to the next. Like, it's so exciting, but it's also really hard. And yeah, it can tear you up. I remember when my last child left elementary school, when my third child was going into junior high, I was like, I will never have another elementary school kid. And there was something about that like made my heart really sad. I don't know. It's this weird, you can't go back.
It's the last. I think it's the last. Well, and it's funny because when you're talking about elementary school, the elementary schools try to put a positive spin on it. Like out here, it's called like kindergarten roundup. Okay, you know what kindergarten roundup is? It's, hey, send in your paperwork. And there is so much paperwork. I'm like, yeah, it's a cute tagline.
Paperwork.
But it is so much paperwork. And they just need to know who's going to be enrolling for next year and to prepare for like the teachers and the numbers and all this stuff. But they're like, oh, if we put a cute little tagline, it makes it sound better. No, you're still just filling out paper after paper, form after form. And then as moms, like when you are going from that preschool to kindergarten year, it's still so sad because you're like, no, how am I here at kindergarten roundup? Or if you have a preschooler, like you start doing the preschool tours, like end of January, February time, because that's when like you're registering your kids for preschool. And it was 2 years ago when we were thinking of putting Cole in preschool the following year. And Cole and I were doing a tour and it was fantastic and it was great and he loved it. And guess what? Cole did not want to leave that preschool tour. And so he literally started like crying and like, no, and he didn't want to leave. And like, he's throwing, like, he's so sad and upset. And like the teacher who was like, you know, showing me around and I was talking to the director and you're trying to do all these things. And then you're trying to like leave. And they're like, oh, see, he loves it here. He wants to stay. And I'm like, that's great. And they're trying to be encouraging to me as I'm literally picking him up and carrying him out as he's screaming. You know, like nothing ever goes as planned.
They're all, maybe this one's, I mean, they could be like, maybe this one's not for you. Maybe.
And I'm like, Cole, you're going to get us kicked out before we can even get in. But those tours are important.
You're all behaved.
Those are good to do because then you get a good idea and feel of like, is this where I want my preschooler to go? Because especially when they're a toddler, like they don't have the full communication skills that maybe like an elementary school child has. And you're like, I really need to check this out. I always bring my kids with me for the tours to make sure like, is this a place they'd feel comfortable and to kind of see what their thoughts are. Clearly, Cole liked that preschool and didn't want to leave.
Did he go to that one? Did he end up going to that one?
Okay, he went to that preschool for a year, and then that's the preschool that changed their potty training policy. So then this past school year, the school year he's in now,
the PP policy,
they changed that. So we had to go to a different preschool this year, but next year he's going back because now he's potty trained. And that's part of like the, hey, we have to get you potty trained. And he has to be like 100% potty trained because this preschool is a really strict potty training policy. Because I'm like, I want you to go to this preschool, Cole. You really liked it. Like you didn't even want to leave after the tour. You had a great year last year. So
we just need you to be on the toilet.
It's the motivation. But we were there.
My grandson is he's like nearing the end of his potty training journey because it's a journey. And I wrote a song called Pee Patrol. Pee Patrol, Pee Patrol, Pee goes in the potty. Pee Patrol, Pee Patrol, Pee comes out your body. Pee Patrol. And I have to sing it the whole time. He's going pee. And then we have to be quiet and listen to hear pee. Anyway, that's a tip or trick for if you're getting your child ready, if you're planning on preschool and you need to potty train. I mean, you're right. That's the time where there's rules and diaper changing and stuff. So, I mean, preschools might not change diapers. So planning ahead.
Well, I'm sitting here wondering why in the world have I never heard that song before? Like you made it up and it's fantastic. Like where was this 5 kids ago? I could have used this a while back. That is fantastic.
Well, I've just been introduced to Paw Patrol. So Everything is to that tune right now. But yeah, it works for Pee Patrol. It helps.
It does. And that
It
is
works.
when you are dealing with the preschoolers and you're getting them ready and thinking about that. I mean, part of it is like they want them to bring their own little like bento box, you know, like what you and I would call lunch pail. Now they're called bento boxes. You know, and they're like, hey, before preschool, and you want to start months in advance, like have them eat out of their bento box. So that way they learn like how to eat out of this container, you know, or like, oh, if it's going to be a different sippy cup, like this preschool he's at now, it had to be a very specific preschool cup. So it was like, okay, have them start practicing out of the specific cup that the preschool will allow. Or some of them, like they bring their mat to school to sleep on. Okay, have them practice sleeping on that mat before they actually go to preschool. And because you're dealing with a preschooler, this is stuff that you want to do months in advance. And in the meantime, you have other kids who are off to school and you have other kids who are also in swimming lessons or extracurricular activities. So it's like in your spare time, have your upcoming preschooler practice eating out of their special box. You know, it's just all of those little things that you think about or you hear about. And moms are the ones who are implementing that. You know, there's all these great ideas, but it's like, yeah, let me find time to do this, you know, in a super busy schedule while I'm also doing laundry.
Yes. And now everybody's eating out of bento boxes. And now you have to cut up all of the cute little sandwiches and cute little fruits and just into little shapes and stuff. It's a different world. But I would say that my my high schooler also got a bento box, and I did cut things up for her and I color coordinated it, so, which I've mentioned before. So I know what it's like having a child go to school with the bento box, just so you guys know. But that it's so much.
There was a couple years where my kids had Bent Go boxes, and that brand is incredible.
Bent Go?
Yes, Bent Go. And those things lasted for a while because like bento box is like legit. Like you have a bento box. But we had the Bent Go boxes and they lasted for a couple school years.
Yeah.
Like
mine's Amazon.
Yeah, it works. It works. It's good.
They're amazing. It keeps the food separate. You know, you have all those little little squares. It's fantastic.
When you say it like that, it kind of makes you think that maybe elementary school kids with their bento boxes, all they're doing is eating out of a toddler plate because that's what toddler plates look like.
They are. They're toddler plates. That's so true. But they're fantastic. I even use mine for my little toddler when he comes over. Sometimes I'll put something. But I have an issue where if I have to fill every little square. You know what I mean? Like... He doesn't eat everything, but I'm like, okay, there's 6 squares. I don't have 6 things he'll eat, but I feel like every little hole needs a little snack or something in it. Otherwise, it's just empty and sad.
You fill every square? You deserve like a prize for that. That's impressive.
Come on. Don't you fill all the squares? Like the big one, the sandwich would go in, and then I would do for Shiloh, I would do strawberries and goldfish, then a little blue snack. And like I legitimately was like, I need something green to finish this rainbow, and what am I going to put in this square? There has to be something in the square. You couldn't have an extra square. I mean, you could put little notes in it or a napkin, I guess, but I feel that's appropriate. I mean, come on.
I think it's amazing. I think that's goals. #, goals, fill all the squares. I'm not there yet. I'm like, you might have a square.
Do you just put like one square? That's like a sandwich bag. You just have a sandwich.
For Cole, I don't fill all the squares. For the twins, I do. For the twins, it's like, okay, let's make sure everything's in there. But from like preschool, like... He doesn't even eat that much at school anyway. So if he eats anything, we're happy about that. I mean, and that is part of it is the toddlers at preschool are learning how to even eat when mom or dad isn't there. And they're having to learn how to like sit in a chair correctly and be with their friends. And mom's not, originally like spoon feeding them, or mom's not there saying, okay, take another bite. And who knows what preschool teachers, I mean, they have a whole bunch of kids. So do they have time to really spend one-on-one with your child to make sure they eat? No. So for Cole and all the preschoolers I've had, if there's an empty square, there's an empty square. I'm doing the best I can. But yeah, for the elementary school kids.
That's right, girl.
I could see theirs are filled. Yes.
Well, that's got to be a big thing too when you put your child, like if they've been at home and they go to preschool, they're now like not having that one-on-one attention. What is it like for kids for your kids, what has your experience been when they go to preschool and all of a sudden they're one of like, I don't know how many are allowed in a preschool classroom at a time, but it's not 1-to-1 ratio. Like, what's it like for kids having to, wait and not have total attention paid to them?
Can't speak for what it's like for them, but I know from the mom side, it's hard to know that like you're sending your child to school knowing that they're not going to have one-on-one undivided attention. Like they're going to be part of a pack, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a group, there's usually a teacher and an assistant teacher, but they're not getting that undivided attention. And it's hard as a mom to know that, like, hey, for these next 5 hours, you're part of the group, which is good. And developmentally, it's okay for kids to have that. But as a mom to know, like, you're knowingly doing that can be a struggle.
Yeah. You're like, that nobody cares for your child as much as you do. So you're like, there's just a lot of trust. So maybe moms need to plan their own heart, which is what you were saying earlier. Like, how do you prepare to drop your child off? I mean, forget the kid. They're like playing, they're eating Play-Doh. They're fine. Like they're living their best life. But for you as a mom, like having that separation, I know when Daisy started kindergarten, it was only 3 hours then. Like it was just like they didn't have the full day kindergarten. And it was really hard at the beginning. And I remember actually scaring her because I was trying to warn her so much to be safe that she was like scared for the next 6 months. But yeah, like how do you prepare yourself?
I think it's more of that, like going back to the kindergarten roundup idea is I know it's just going to hurt. It's like kindergarten roundup. And I'm like, first of all, I don't have to fill out this paperwork. And second of all, like I know what's coming. And it's just kind of walking through that and kind of dealing with that. And then when you do drop them off, I just have to stay extra busy. Like once I drop my child off at preschool or kindergarten or whatever it is, like I have a full day. Like, and I do that intentionally, which sure, maybe that's not dealing with the issues, like.
Our psychologists listening are like, well, actually, Angie,
that is the worst thing.
You can write us and tell us what we should do. We deal in denial here. It's our tip or trick.
It's true.
Just deny.
Because you are sad. I mean, at our elementary school, they do like this cheers and tears thing where parents can get together after you drop your child off at school and you're actually at the school, you're in the cafeteria and parents can talk and spend time together. I tried it once, but I was like, if I'm sad and emotional, do I want to go talk to strangers? No, like I want to get in my car, I'll cry. I want to be sad and emotional by myself or with other friends, not with strangers. Like
strangers. You're like trying to play it cool and tears are like streaming down your face.
Right?
It's not
your best look. Hi, nice to meet you. Like no, that's not the best first impression. So I tried that once out of all the years. I've never like continued with that. But for you had kids like in public school or you had them in homeschool, like in the spring when you're thinking of next year, especially maybe speaking more towards you being a homeschool mom, like were you looking at other curriculums or other classroom activities when they were in elementary school and like what you needed to do to prepare in the spring for that upcoming school year?
Yeah, I mean, there was, you do need to know like what curriculum you're going to be using. If you're using like a charter, then you're going to be meeting with your educational specialist who's going to start, having you order already in the spring. You're like ordering for the next season and getting ready to like get all your materials away while at the same time trying to finish out all the tests and everything going on for that year. So it's not as emotional because your life isn't, really changed, but there's a lot of prep as far as storing and collecting curriculum. Yeah. And then you always, like as a homeschool mom, you always have these big plans for the next year. And then you hit about like October and you're like, this is a lot. And definitely after Christmas, you're like, here's your worksheets. We'll try to go on some more. Let's just do a bunch of field trips. Let's do some field trips, you guys. So yeah, there's a lot of field trips going on right now. I think in that homeschool world in spring, there's a lot of field trips. Counting that towards history, counting it towards PE. You're doing what you can to just make it through because you're exhausted. If you're a homeschool mom, you are exhausted by the spring and you're ready for the summer. Even though in summer you have a lot of unstructuredness, which is nice, but at the same time, you're still trying to keep your kids busy. So you don't really get a break, but at least you're not teaching, and that's nice. So
I could see that too. And I think even in the public school system, like you kind of see that even with the teachers a little bit. You know, like you have the big winter break, everything's great for another like 2 weeks in January. Okay, the kids are going. And I've noticed kind of even in the public school system, there's like a good like last week of January to about spring break when they're like pushing academics really hard right before spring break. Because then after that, you're prepping for like state testing. At least that's what you're doing in Texas. And it is a big push, but you could tell even with some of the teachers, it's a grind, you know, and they're like, we have to get all this done and one thing and the next thing. And that's when you start seeing the kids, like their outfits are totally mismatched and just all different. Even the parents are like, we don't care anymore. The food is what it is. There are empty spaces.
The bento box has one square filled.
You can just tell, is the hair brushed? I don't know. Did kids brush their teeth? Who knows? Like you can just feel it. There is this kind of this time. And then there's spring break. And then after spring break, it's almost like people are revived. Like, okay, just a few more months. We have, you know, state testing. And then after that, it's super fun. Because, you know, like the last, 2 to 3 weeks of school, there's no education happening. Like, it's all the fun things.
There's like, I know.
It's like camping day.
I mean,
flashlight day.
They're like, show up and turn all your books in and then just sit here and we'll watch a movie. And you're like, I'd rather go on vacation. But whatever. Yeah, it's
right.
True.
It is.
And I had this one, like somebody that we both know, I was spending springtime with them and they had children in, I think elementary and junior high at the time anyway. And for the end of the year, like the beginning of the year, like the bento boxes had like sandwiches and fruit and all your like rounded meals. Literally packing lunch for the like springtime on was just a cup of yogurt and like a granola bar. It was like a Yoplait and like a Nature Valley, and they're like, that's all they're gonna eat anyway. They've got some protein in there. I was like, that's amazing. That's amazing. Maybe a muffin. They're like, I don't know. Like the kids are like. They're eating whatever they want at the end because you're like, at that point, you're tired of making sandwiches at 6 a.m. You're tired of like trying to come up with new things because the kids are sick of sandwiches. They've been eating sandwiches for like 8 months and they're like, I can't do sandwiches again. So just packing lunches in the spring, I mean, that's a lot. And then I know we bring up Pinterest. I know I bring up Pinterest all the time, but it has brought the whole lunchbox game to the next level of pressure. Have you seen those? Have you seen those videos where the moms are like prepping these amazing lunchboxes for their kids and like all the different shapes and colors and foods? And you're like, first of all, how many kids actually love these foods? Like, because they're always super healthy.
Right.
And super cute. And they've cut their strawberries into star shapes. And I don't know. It's just so much. And I was with a friend who just put in yogurt and a granola bar. Their kids were happy and successful. So spring moms, we see you. We hear you. It's okay. Your kids are going to get nutrition at some point.
In the fall when school starts.
I know, in the fall they're going to have really healthy lunches.
Just know.
But right now.
Next school year that you're preparing for.
I know all their new school clothes are like wearing out. They're trying to make the ones last through they got for Christmas. Like that's pushing them through the spring, but already the styles are changing. And you're like, no, the budget's been spent. You got to keep wearing these till fall, till we go back to school shopping. So it's just chaos. Spring is chaos.
It is, because especially
okay.
like in Texas, because we'll have like a cold day and then all of a sudden it'll be like super hot and now it's 85 and then all of a sudden now we're at like 53 degrees the next day. Like spring in Texas is all over the place. And then it's a thunderstorm and then all of a sudden we're back to being hot. And it's like, I don't want to buy, especially like the twins, because they're 8. Like, I don't want to buy them new sweatshirts, but I'm noticing their sweatshirts are getting kind of short, Not like in between size. But if I buy them now, like, it's not going to last till fall, so it's kind of that in between of like, and it's not me. I know it's all of us. All of us are like, oh, our kids' leggings are a little on the short side. It's like the winter club.
You know how pants like capri, like, or like ankle length is come back, or like the high pants. I don't know what you call them. I can't think of what they're called. But anyway, that's probably invented by a mom who has kids in elementary school. And she's like, you know what? We're now high waters are in because all of our kids have high waters by the end of the year.
Yes.
Because we're not shopping again till back to school. That's why all the jeans are no longer skinny jeans. We can't afford it. We can't afford it as parents. We can't keep clothing these children's. Crocs. That's why Crocs are in, because your feet can grow in Crocs for a while. That's why we're wearing Crocs.
Dude, I used to be
it's all a mom
against the like socks and Crocs look, and now I'm like, this is great. Put on socks with those Crocs. Like, it took me a while.
You can wear these for 3 years.
You can. And guess what? If they're muddy, you just take the hose to those things, and you could just take them outside and the hose, it washes them. They look brand new. I mean, it is fantastic. I really resisted the Crocs thing. My kids will tell you, I was like, we were one of the last families to like get in on that. And now spring mom, especially, I am like 100% of the time you guys are wearing Crocs. This is great.
We're wearing Crocs. They're easy to put on. It's not like 3 hours for your child to put on their shoes. Yes. See, that's a tip or trick. If there is a very easy style going around that your kids are willing to wear, do it. Crocs, perfect. Whatever can get you out the door, get you through this season. You're planning for next year. You're doing your school tours. Where you guys are at, can you choose your elementary?
No.
Or do you have to go
You're
to
zoned.
Okay.
I mean, you can ask for like an inter-district transfer, but you're zoned for schools.
And I know that there's some places, I was talking to somebody whose child's in Boston, they have to like win a lottery. Like they have like a lottery system to get their child in the school next to them. And they might not get in. So that I can't imagine that pressure, not knowing if your child's going to get in their local school or if they're going to have to go to another school.
That sounds like so much pressure.
It's crazy.
I never win anything, so if it's
we hear you.
If it's the lottery, like I'm out, kids. We're going to that school 30 miles away.
We are not living in Boston.
I can't.
We're not in Massachusetts anymore, guys. We're moving to Texas. Wow. Well, you guys planning? What's a few tips or tricks we can leave our sweet mother funny friends who are surviving spring? If they have young children who they're planning to get into either kindergarten or preschool or elementary school. That transition too from kindergarten to first grade is a big one.
I would think, and I don't even know if this is a tip or trick, and for all our psychologists and psychiatrists, they might think this is the worst advice ever. But I would just say, I'm trying to be a realist. Like, let's be real here.
Aw, good job, Angie. That's usually my job.
Oh, you're right.
You've done too many podcasts with me.
I would just say, know the timelines. So if you know, like, hey, your child needs to be registered at this preschool by March 28th, then make sure you tour that preschool and you have an idea before March 28th. And then you don't need to decide in January. Like, do all the things you need to do, but know the timelines. Or like a lot of school districts, they've already released their calendar for next year. Go ahead and start looking at that calendar. When is the first day of kindergarten, or, or when does the school district start their first day? And then also know the week before that is usually meet the teacher. That's usually if you have medications, you have to drop off those medications. Like, there's a lot to do the week before the first day of school. So like when you as a spring mom are looking into next year, you're also kind of looking into like summer and summer plans. For us, we do not plan anything the week before the first day of school because there's usually a lot that has to happen. So I think sometimes you can get overwhelmed with like, I have to make this decision and this decision. And it's good to kind of prioritize. Okay, here's all the decisions. Sometimes maybe you just have to write it out. Or here's, we used to like make a list of here's all the preschools. Okay, so I made a list of all the preschools that I had heard about, that I had researched. Okay, which ones do I really want? Which ones, and making those, going on those tours, making sure Cole was with me, having those calls. And never be afraid to call a preschool, an elementary school, a district office. I will talk to anybody, and I will call and I will get my answers. And I think sometimes people are afraid, but if you have a question, just call the school. I cannot tell you how many group me's I am in where people are asking parents, and usually the parents are giving them the wrong information. Or it starts a huge thread. You didn't need to start the thread, or it can start drama. We don't need the drama. Just call the school directly.
No Marthas.
See, then Martha gets involved.
We don't want Martha involved. Just call the school.
Yes, if you're concerned.
Straight to the source.
Totally, especially in the preschool, kindergarten, call the director. They're there to help you. I think sometimes, especially first-time moms, or when you have little ones, you're like, oh, has everyone asked this question? I don't want to ask a question everybody's asked. No, call the director. They'll walk you through it. That's part of their job, is to help answer those questions and to walk moms through it. Don't ever be afraid that your question isn't important, or if this concern isn't that important. No, if it's important to you, it needs to be important to them. And so just bring that to their attention, right. And don't spend time asking other moms. Go to the source.
Go to the source. Don't be afraid. You're not going to get detention.
You won't.
You're going to be fine.
You won't.
That's such good advice. Ask questions. I know we would always ask, especially when Shiloh started public school, I had a million questions because we hadn't really gone that route before. So yeah, do it. It'll be great. And I want to say my encouragement for if you are about to put your child in the fall into kindergarten or preschool, and it's your first time leaving them, there is a moment, be sad, for sure, we should feel our feelings. But also, I would suggest to plan something fun and exciting, because this is also your graduation. You have gotten your child through those first years. You have this child who's capable of being in this setting, and you get to have some time. You did it, Mama. Enjoy. Get yourself a beverage on the way. You know how I like everyone to just get themselves treats, but enjoy. There is a silver lining. It is hard. You can be sad. Get a latte.
Words to live by. You can be sad. Get a latte.
Did I give my kids treats when they were sad? Is that good? No. But did it help? Yes. All right, we're already out of time. You want to join us next time, because we're going to talk about planning for the bigger grades, junior high, high school, on to college.
Okay.
It's
now you're making us all sad. Now Andie's making us sad.
Go get a latte. Go get a latte and suck it up. All right, that's all we have time for today. We got to wrap it up, unfortunately. But just remember, you might think you're doing just okay, but we think you're doing really great.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you have a great Mother Funny day. Please like and share our podcast.
But please don't tell our moms.